we begin, I would like to request all to kindly switch off their mobile phones or put them on silent mode, please. Good morning, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and valued participants. It is an honor to welcome you all to the panel discussion on Inside the Hermit Kingdom, Decoding the DPRK's Politics, Society, and Global Role, organized by the Indian Council of World Affairs. To navigate the complexities of North Korea, we are privileged to have with us an esteemed panel of experts who will offer their insights into the inner workings of the DPRK and its broader strategic implications. We look forward to a stimulating discussion that will deepen our understanding and contribute to informed discourse on this important subject. Without further ado, I would let us begin our proceedings. To kick off the panel discussion, I invite Ms. Nutan Kapoor Mahawar, Additional Secretary of the Indian Council of World Affairs, to deliver the welcome remarks.
Distinguished experts, including those who are joining us online, students and friends. Welcome to the discussion on the DPRK, a country that remains reclusive and yet pivotal in shaping regional and global geopolitical dynamics. When we were curating this panel discussion, we decided to focus for a change only on DPRK rather than on the peace and security on the Korean Peninsula or on situation in Northeast Asia to provide more room to ponder on DPRK's society, its politics, and global role. We were also conscious of the fact that such a discussion might be constrained due to lack of primary sources of information. Let me begin by the imagery of DPRK in the media. The DPRK has been governed by the Kim dynasty, whose portrayal in the media has varied across the world. The Western media has painted the regime as authoritarian, isolationist, somewhat cranky, a nuclear threat, projecting sensational narratives with selective focus on robotic military parades and intimidating missile tests, shaping the dominant narrative of North Korea in the Western imagination. In contrast, Russian media portrays DPRK as a traditional friend which can be trusted with Russian cooperation in strategic sectors. Chinese state media, too, provides a more pragmatic and sometimes sympathetic description of the regime. Kim Jong-un is depicted as a leader who ensured political continuity and national sovereignty through serious challenges to the state's affairs. It is this divergence in perspectives that underscores the geopolitical fault lines that frames North Korea's global identity and its policy choices. Over the years, DPRK's society and economy have shown resilience and adaptation in face of persistent sanctions. The overall welfare of the average citizen is, however, subject to systemic constraints. DPRK in recent times has navigated through periods of economic hardship, famine, military provocations, and diplomatic confrontations, not always without assistance from traditional external partners. In spite of what seems to be rigorous state control, there appears to be sign that North Korean society is not entirely monolithic. Over the last 2 decades, for instance, grassroots marketization has encouraged growth of informal economic spaces with reports of over 400 officially sanctioned private market activities. The influx of foreign media through illicit means, such as smuggled USB drives, have also given the people glimpses of life beyond their borders, as per testimonies of some DPRK defectors. This raises speculation about possible subtle shifts and aspirations amongst the younger generation raised under Kim Jong-un's era. It is no secret that North Korea has faced rolling waves of sanctions by the UN Security Council, the US, and the European Union. Every time Pyongyang tested its nuclear capabilities and test launched its ballistic missiles. The measures targeted sales of arms, imports of luxury goods, financial assets, and access to global banking in order to halt the DPRK nuclear and missile program, yet their effectiveness remains contested. Additionally, the US hardening of position on North Korea arrived in 2002 when President George Bush added the DPRK to the axis of evil. The logic was straightforward. Washington implied that Pyongyang, in its pursuit of weapons of mass destruction, supported global terrorism, which thereafter cemented DPRK's pariah status in Western foreign policy, overlooking the country's own insecurities and paranoia. North Korea's global positioning must be placed within the larger Cold War context involving the Korean War of 1950-53. The Korean War, which ended in an armistice but not a peace treaty, entrenched the division of and locked the peninsula into hostility, and the North aligned itself with the Soviet Union bloc. After 1991, the collapse of the Soviet Union, North Korea faced an economic crisis and a strategic vacuum, facing Pyongyang to recalibrate its foreign relations and economic strategy. China became a crucial partner, supplying energy, food, aid, and trade, though with more pragmatic and conditional support. Despite the recent summits with President Trump and meetings with South Korean and Chinese leaders in 2017-18, Kim's decision of last year to abandon hopes of peaceful reunification with South Korea and declare Seoul as North Korea's new number one enemy indicates the pulls from divergent directions on DPRK on how to position itself in current geopolitics. In the past 2 years, Russia has re emerged as a willing partner to North Korea with the signing of a comprehensive treaty between Pyongyang and Moscow, which is becoming a tool to resist Western pressure. The treaty's provision for mutual assistance in the event of aggression against one of the parties is remnant of Cold War politics and is understood to be aimed at deterring the US and its allies and NATO. Deployment of DPRK troops is a paradigm shift for the Ukraine war and current geopolitics. DPRK is now closely aligned with Russia and China, countries that challenge the West led world order. This evolving cooperation provides North Korea with potential economic and technological gains, possibly in the form of advanced military equipment and energy resources, while complicating efforts for denuclearization and non-proliferation. Analysts indicate nuances in Russian and Chinese approaches towards DPRK, and I hope the panel will shed light on this. As regards India, historically it has maintained a non confrontational approach towards North Korea and has preferred dialogue and restraint. New Delhi maintains diplomatic relations with Pyongyang with limited developmental assistance. India has also recently decided to resume its embassy operations in North Korea after it was shut in 2021 due to the COVID restrictions. Within the broader Indo Pacific outlook, India prioritizes stability on the Korean peninsula and well being of the Korean people as key to regional security, long term stability, and maritime cooperation. I hope the panel will discuss whether there is room for India to broaden its outreach to DPRK, especially in the humanitarian sphere. An element in India's position on North Korea has been its concerns related to proliferation linkages between DPRK, China, and Pakistan, which have adversely impacted its security calculus. India's concerns are well known, and here it is for China to take the lead in creating an atmosphere of trust. To conclude, let me say that being an unconventional nation state, it is important to explore DPRK beyond cliches that reduce it to a rogue regime. And it is with this objective that we have put together an eminent group of panelists, today ably chaired by Ambassador Tayal, former Ambassador of India to South Korea, and panelists from Delhi, Seoul, and Moscow for varied perspectives. I look forward to a fruitful and thought provoking discussion. I wish the panelists all the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Ambassador Mahavar, for that introduction of the theme. My congratulations to ICWA and you and Professor Langal that normally any discussion on North Korea is focused only on their nuclear program. So today we'll be discussing the decoding the DPRK's politics, society, and global role. I think that gives a very good opportunity for panelists and all of us to dig deeper and try to understand that country. Before I proceed, there's so many young scholars here. I'll fully endorse what Ambassador said. Never believe the Western media. You draw your own conclusions. Listen, read to diverse media, read all kinds of reports from different sources, and then come to some conclusion. All right. Now, politics of DPRK. Of course, it's a centralized political system as it is in any authoritarian, totalitarian, one-party state. But it is also a personalized around uh, Kim dynasty. I recall when I was in Seoul, the Chinese ambassador said that it is like a Central Asian Nawab. It's not a communist state. It's like Uzbekistan earlier, Khanets. He said it's like a Khanet. Anyway, question arises, is there any number two there? Some name, Choe, he has been mentioned, chairman of standing committee of the Supreme People's Assembly. A couple of years back, there was another name mentioned. I'm sure Professor Mishra and others would be following, some Jo Yong Bon. But what happened to him? Who was he? Of course, dynastic succession seems to be very much part of the polity there. KJU is very young, of course. But who is in the dynasty next? Sister Kim Yo Jong, State Affairs Commission member. She has been prominent making statements and some, I think she is in the dynasty. She is high up there. Wife doesn't hear much about her, Ri Soichu. But a very young daughter is visible in the media, Kim Ju-a. So where is some succession being planned? Now the society, of course, in all the communist states, societies are fully literate. But what about higher education? How is Korea able to produce a succession of engineers, technicians, scientists who can launch space satellites and make weapons and all of that? What is the state of health facilities there? Even Cuba and many other totalitarian states have excellent health facilities. What about health facilities there? Then food security, of course. India has also been providing $1 million food assistance from time to time. I think last for 2020. What is the state of affairs today? And we all recall under COVID, what kind of total lockdown was put in place in North Korea. What are the after effects? Have they come out of it? Now, let us pose more questions. After all, it is Indian Council of World Affairs on KJU's foreign policy. In my view, Kim Jong-un is an astute strategic practitioner. Astute strategic practitioner. He has ensured regime survival. The world has more or less accepted it is a nuclear weapons power with credible delivery capacity. So no country can do a Ukraine or a Libya on North Korea. And he's also capable of very out-of-the-box thinking. We all recall the honeymoon between Trump 1 and Kim Jong-un of 2018, the Singapore summit, June 2018, Hanoi, 27, 28 February 2019, where agreement had been almost concluded and tables were being put in the courtyard for signature when the deep state of United States intervened and held Trump's hand. There is no deep state now around President Trump, but in President Trump's priorities, is North Korea somewhere? That is the question. But all that depends on, or any rapprochement or some understanding between US and North Korea would depend on South Korea. We all recall former President Moon Jae-in's trip to Pyongyang, September 2018, absolutely historic. But then President Yoon Suk Yeol came. He was very, very, very pro-US. We all know. But he is now out. As I said, South Korea was declared a hostile state in 2024 by North Korea, and they have abandoned the goal of reunification, which is a very practical thing to do, in my view. But a new president may be there on 3rd of June. Lee Jae-myung's name is being mentioned. Will the sunshine policy in a new form be back? And with the President Trump, who may be nursing some dreams of having a historic agreement, they could work together. Another trajectory to watch is DPRK Russia. Post Ukraine Russia war, it has been galloping ahead with soldiers fighting, North Korean soldiers apparently, on the Ukraine front. Munitions, that is a fact. A lot of artillery, etc., has gone from North Korea to Russia. And perhaps Russia is supplying food, financial, technical assistance to North Korea, because that satellite which was put in orbit after several failures, that happened after KJU met President Putin. And so perhaps some technology transfer took place, who knows. Then, of course, the June 2024 visit of President Putin to Pyongyang has been again historic. The defense agreement has also been signed, as mentioned. One of the topics in the concept paper is China's central role in sustaining DPRK. Of course, it has a very, very central role. More than 90% of DPRK's foreign trade is with China. Perhaps food also comes from there. Then the Mutual Defense Treaty was renewed in 2021. And I always maintain that in North Korea's nuclear program, China has played a complicit role. Because just to have a nuclear program, you need very sophisticated computers, tracking system, composite materials. And we recall when ICBM was displayed on a 30-wheel truck in Pyongyang. Can North Korea manufacture all that? Difficult. Then DPRK's nuclear program. I think most realists believe that denuclearization of Korean Peninsula is a fantasy. And anything practical can only be around some kinds of an arms control agreement. Then the future will tell which way it will go. And also the concept paper says, can DPRK or will DPRK come out of isolation? I think Chairman KJU wants to come out of isolation. And that's why all these overtures to US and all of that. But of course, he was rebuffed. But two things. One, there is no economic value in DPRK. It has neither oil, nor rare earth, nor wheat, nor nothing, which the rest of the world wants. Otherwise, they would have been quoted. The only thing which, when I was there, and so there was some hope, the railway line from South Korea through North Korea to Russia, and that could open another route for South Korean and goods, etc., to Europe. But that is something which is for the future. But any coming back or coming out of isolation will, of course, depend on South Korea and United States, and also which way the whole geopolitics is headed, which, as all of you know, is today completely in flux. So to discuss all these issues and more, we have a very, very eminent panel. And again, congratulations to ICWA for putting it together. And we start with Professor Hwang, Department of International Relations in University of Seoul, who has joined us from Seoul. All the panelists have about 10 minutes, Professor, and after that we'll have a discussion. Over to you, Professor Hwang.
Okay, let me start. Thanks for having me here. This is Jihwan Hwang from Korea, University of Seoul, Korea. And today I'm gonna mention about North Korea's domestic politics, society, and also its foreign relations. The first of all, with regard to its foreign relations and the strategic, thinking. In terms of that, I think that the North Korea has presented a grave threat to peace and stability, not only on the Korean Peninsula, but also to the rest of Asia and the world. So that threat is not actually new, but it has recently become more aggressive. Notably, although it has not conducted a nuclear test since 2017. It concluded a new security treaty with Russia and reportedly, sent more than 10,000 troops to the Ukraine war. So the security treaty with Russia was an effort to, I think, to make changes to the international relations around the Korean Peninsula. The current North Korean threat is, I think, the extension of the Haejeon breakthrough, 정면 돌파전 in Korean strategy that it declared at the end of 2019. Actually, it maintained that this hardline stance at the 8th Party Congress, in January 2021, setting out targets for the, such as the hypersonic missiles, super large nuclear bombs, multiple warhead, nuclear weapons technology, and nuclear submarines, and submarine launched nuclear weapons, and the SLBM, and also military reconnaissance, satellite. In addition, North Korea enacted the nuclear weapons policy law, in Korean, the 핵무력 정책 법안, in September 2022, which stipulated that 5 conditions for nuclear first use and a predetermined operational plan for the legitimizing the use of nuclear weapons, so thereby the escalating the potential for a nuclear crisis. 3 of these conditions involve nuclear or non-nuclear preemptive attacks by the hostile forces of North Korea, and the other 2 concerns wartime operations and inevitable catastrophic crisis. So the Kim Jong-un, KJU, has implied that the nuclear forces would have no choice but to execute their second mission unexpectedly if enemies threaten the DPRK's fundamental interests. As you understand, the first mission that he mentioned is, of course, the nuclear deterrence against the United States. So this nuclear first use policy may include using tactical nuclear weapons on the Korean Peninsula. Originally North Korea, talked about the strategic nuclear weapons against the United States when it finally they conducted a nuclear test in 2017. So now North Korea has plans to develop small tactical nuclear weapons, as well as the medium range and submarine launched ballistic missiles and strategic nuclear weapons. So it suggests that the Pyongyang is shifting its nuclear strategy from assured retaliation to asymmetric escalation, according to the VP Narang, the MIT professor, those terms. So it carries a much greater risk, with that the asymmetric, the escalation, strategy. So North Korea revised also its constitution in September 2023 to make its nuclear policy more explicit and to implement that. So in this way, the North Korea has continuously stepped up its offensive against the United States and South Korea on the Korean peninsula. So furthermore, North Korea has sought to change the nature of inter-Korean relations, North and South Korea relations. In the plenary session of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party in late 2023, the Kim Jong-un declared that the inter-Korean relations and its unification policies are over and should be revised, defining the inter-Korean relations as involving two hostile relations at war instead of pressing for unification as in as his grandfather and his father said in the past. So North Korea's relations and also the North Korean relations with Russia and China present another challenge for the Korean peninsula. So an important aspect of Pyongyang's confrontational stance towards South Korea, I think, come from its improving relations with Moscow and Beijing, because Pyongyang has actively supported China amid the various U.S.-China strategic the conflict and competition, and also has strongly defended Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine in February 2022, North Korea has provided Russia with many military equipment, reportedly including the ammunition, artillery shells, missiles, and other goods to Russia. So they even sent reportedly more than 10,000, troops to the Ukraine war. So North Korea has argued that the root cause of the Ukraine crisis lies in the hegemonic strategy of the United States and the Western world, and that the Russia's demands are reasonable and just. So Kim Jong-un, KJU, has declared that the newly signed Treaty on Comprehensive Strategic Partnership between Russia and North Korea, was established on June last year. The elevate their relationship to a new higher level of alliance. So the treaty, particularly Article 4, stipulate that, quote, if either country faces war due to armed invasion by one or more states, the other party will provide immediate, military and other forms of assistance using all means at its disposal, unquote. So this provision presents a significant threat with profound implications for the Russian war strategy and also the regional order in both Europe and East Asia, I think. However, there are important factors to consider regarding the long-term impact of this Russia DPRK alliance. So the thing is that whether it will endure beyond the Ukraine war, but the thing is that the Russia DPRK relations have undergone significant changes, over the past 3 decades after the end of the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. So it remains, unclear whether this closeness between these two countries will last after the war. So in this sense, I think that North Korea appears to be taking advantage of the treaty to formalize its relationship with the other, the patrons, great powers. So Kim Jong-un also has also made effort to strengthen relations with China, and he has made the effort to deepen strategic communications and mutual understanding between the two sides, thereby providing a firm guarantee for further, strengthening the bilateral relations. So Pyongyang is now seeking a new security environment on the Korean peninsula while strengthening its awareness of a new Cold War order. Kim Jong-un, himself several times, stated that quote, as the structure of international relations changed into a new Cold War structure and a multipolar one. So Kim's perception of the new Cold War order reflect the U.S.-China strategic rivalry and the Ukraine war and the change in the international situation since the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. So he seems to believe that the changes in the world order will also change the security environment on the Korean peninsula. North Korean domestic situation has been always difficult for several decades, but it has not been developed to threaten the regime crisis. So to a certain extent, North Korea's domestic political and economic situations are expected to affect the North Korean foreign relations. So throughout the Kim Jong-un era, there have been serious concerns that the North Korea has experienced, suffered from the grave, domestic difficulties, and which was caused by the international sanctions and shutdown of its borders during the COVID-19 era and the natural disasters, including the typhoons and the flood, something like that. In the Voluntary National Review, VNR, submitted to the United Nations a few years ago, the North Korea acknowledged that it has been experiencing difficulty with these cereal productions as well as medical, supplies, something like that. So during the Party Congress, Kim Jong-un also even admitted that the 5-year plan, economic development plan, had, failed. If the domestic predicament persists, then North Korea may produce other provocative measures to deal with its domestic difficulties. It may be, possibly forced to engage in an aggressive foreign policy aimed at the garnering the attention from the international community. But although some predicted the possibility of the regime instability, I think the Kim Jong-un regime still appears to be very sustainable enough to go through all these difficulties. So finally, I think the North Korea's domestic hardship has exposed the various aspects of the North Korean regime's internal and external the challenges and response strategy. So those strategy can be summarized as the first, the anti-globalization strategy, second, the state-centered control strategy, and third, the mobilization the strategy. In conclusion, they have the North Korea is unstable, but they have this kind of authoritarian control toolbox that makes the Kim Jong-un regime, survive, despite all the difficulties. But there is a deep connection between its domestic politics and also its foreign policy and international relations. Let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Hwang, for these remarks. Yes, it appears that Cold War is perhaps back again in Europe, and perhaps Korean Peninsula, it never really left. But the fundamental question is that the North Korean nuclear weapons program is just to ensure regime survival, or do they harbor some expansionist designs towards South Korea still? That is for the future to tell. Now I invite our guest from Moscow, Dr. Alexander Vorontsov, head of Korea's Korea and Mongolia Department, RAS Institute of Oriental Studies. Over to you, Dr. Vorontsov. We can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just now it's okay?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Indian Council of World Affairs for kind invitation me to such a very important conference to take part. Yes, in very important topic dealing with the current state of North Korea and strategic security situation on Korean Peninsula. And frankly speaking, when we are hearing and when I am hearing repeatedly the thesis how North Korea possess very grave threat to the United States, to South Korea, to the East Asia, it looks very interesting, sometimes a little bit amazing. if we will compare the military capability of the North Korea and the United States, who can possess the threat to each other, the question will be quite simple. And to understand the strategy, and Mr. Chair was absolutely right when he focused our attention on the question, what was the reason for nuclear weapon appearance in North Korea? It's the task of survival or task of possessing no threat to the neighboring country. I think it's important to understand the motivation and the reason of the situation. And we would and sequences of deals and facts, actions. It was the United States in 1951 who concluded the alliance treaty first, yes? First, who concluded the alliance treaty with the Republic of Korea, and using this treaty deployed American forces in South Korea. And later, Soviet Union and China concluded the treaty with the DPRK in North Korea in 1961. And consequently, last year, Russia and North Korea concluded the Treaty of Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, which is to the big extent similar to this alliance treaty between the United States and South Korea. And based on this treaty, United States deployed on Korean Peninsula not only their troops, as we know, but their nuclear weapons. It was the United States first who deployed nuclear weapons on Korean soil. Tactical, as we remember, yes, about 1,000 pieces of nuclear weapons that were withdrew by President Bush Sr. in the beginning of 19, but during a long period of time they were deployed on South Korea, and it was calculated in North Korea strategic thinking and the response and the existence of nuclear response from North Korea. It was driven to considerable extent by this fact also. And when we speak about the North Korean threat, absolutely, I agree with Mr. Choe again that the strategic goal of North Korea is survival, to provision of survival. And they are deeply sure that the strategic goal of the United States as well as the Republic of Korea as other alliance of the United States, its final task is liquidation of DPRK, liquidation of DPRK. Yes, there were some rounds diplomatic efforts during the agreed framework period in the second half of 19, the six-party talks, etc. But in course of these negotiations talks, North Korea felt and discovered the hidden agenda of their opponents, aimed at the final liquidation of North Korea. So their stance on the increasing defense capability, including the nuclear missile component, it's a logical response from their part to provide their own survival. And coming back to the inter-Korean relations, yes, it's of course very, very sad story that North Korea in 1 year ago refused from the policy of unification that they conducted during a long period of time. But what was the reason? There are, of course, many reasons, but we do remember that what predecessor of the former South Korean president, Mr. Moon Jae-in, he succeeded to conduct 3 summits. Yes, it was recently, 5 years ago, conducted 3 summits with North Korea. He was allowed, for example, they signed important military agreement in 2018, yes, very important, practical step, confidence building measures, which was appreciated by the military expert society in all countries. It was a considerable success. By the way, he was allowed to speak directly to North Korean people. Yes, he made a speech in the North Korean in Pyongyang Stadium. It was more than 100,000 North Korean citizens who down in the stadium and had the speech of President of the Republic of Korea, Mr. Moon Jae-in, in 2018. So cooperation was on the good condition. But from the last week, the former president of the Republic of Korea, Mr. Yoon Suk-yeol, rejected all this legacy. And he told this, it was false peace, it was false negotiations. I will not participate in false negotiations with North Korea, etc., etc. And by the way, it was October 1st of last year when he told Mr. Yoon Suk-yeol, thanks to the Washington Declaration, the US-South Korean alliance has become nuclear alliance. As our esteemed Mr. Chair mentioned, he was very pro-American. And it was response from North Korea, and he told that all conceptions of all administration of Republic of Korea, as well as Constitution of Republic of Korea, they reject the existence of DPRK as republic. And the conceptions of Mr. Yoon Suk-yeol that he announced in August of last year, unification conceptions, once again was aimed at creation of one liberal Korea on Korean Peninsula, expansion of South Korea on the whole Korean Peninsula, liquidation of DPRK as a state. Therefore, it was said, but to some extent logical, that North Korea decided that just now our relations is not the brother relations more, it's a relation between two different foreign countries which exist now in hostile stance. It's a sad story. But it was response, as well as the nuclear and missiles programs development. And coming back to the Russian-North Korea relations, it was mentioned, yes, it was just now we have traditional good relations. Russian policy towards Korean Peninsula traditionally very stable. The primary interest is peace and stability on Korean Peninsula because it's an integral part of stability and security of our border. We have common border with Korean Peninsula. And our goal aimed at is to have good neighboring and friendly relation with both Korean states. And every Korean state in the Republic of Korea and DPRK has their own value for Russia, strategic, important value. And the relation with DPRK also was strategically and kind of traditionally good. Just now it's race, we know, and last year we concluded important treaty of strategic partnership cooperation. It's developing and the economic, culture, and other fields of cooperations are growing, and many delegations exchange between our two countries raised, and high-level visit both to North Korea and to Russia is very intensive. So what's the reason? The reason some observers, including Russian experts, apprised and assessed the current stage of Russia-DPRK relation as the highest one in the whole history. By the way, Mr. Putin, his first visit to North Korea in 2000, not now, 2000 year, it is the first visit of the first person in Russia in the history. Even in the period of the Soviet Union, we were alliance with DPRK. The first leader of Soviet Union, the General Secretary of Communist Party, never visited DPRK. Mr. Putin happened to be the first highest person in Russian political hierarchy who visited North Korea. It was 25 years ago. Therefore, it's traditional. Just now is a new stage, of course. There are many reasons, and one of the reasons is that the DPRK fully understood the reason of the special military operation which Russia was needed to start in Ukraine. They understood that it was respond to the non-stop eastward expansion of NATO. And just now we're speaking openly that the strategic goal of Western countries, including the United States, headed by the United States, that it was repeated many times, is to inflict strategic defeat to Russia in the battlefield. The North Korea have had that the strategic goal of the United States is the destruction of DPRK as a state, as a political regime. Regime change in North Korea is strategic goal. So the situation is similar and close, and they told for us for many years, look, when we supported sanctions in the UN, for example, against North Korea nuclear program, etc., they told.
Dr. Vorontsov, kindly conclude in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Therefore, the conclusion of the Treaty of Strategic Cooperation is the logical result of the bilateral relation development between our two countries, and it's aimed at stabilization of situation in North Korea. Look their behavior. Well, just now, 2 minutes, yes, Mr. Chair, may I ask 2 minutes? Thank you so much. And based on this agreement of last year, North Korea became to feel themselves more self-confident, and their response, their reaction to the many military drills, joint, bilateral, trilateral, United States, South Korea, Japan, United States, South Korea, which non-stop are conducted in South Korea, which were nervous for North Korea. Just now, their reaction became a little bit more calm. Look, their extremely constrained behavior and response in the face of the turbulence in South Korea after the last year December decision of former President of Republic of Korea to impose the martial law in North Korea. What just now, DPRK is successfully emerging from geopolitical isolation and economic crisis. Yes, they imposed by themselves self-isolation policy during the COVID pandemic, and during 3 years, they completely closed the borders. It was more severe effect that on sanctions, very heavy sanctions which they imposed in North Korea, but they survived. Just now, they are opening to the world and quite successfully, and they became once again the active player in the international arena. And their counterpart in many countries, including the United States, by the way, also are feeling that North Korea became more self-confident. But their reaction, for example, to this domestic foreign policy, internal foreign policy crisis in South Korea, dealing with coup d'etat, etc., was extremely constrained. It was also one of the results of the outreaches. They became self-confident and more constrained. Therefore, I think the result is aimed at the stabilization of strategic situation on Korean Peninsula. It's not a threat to a country, it's self-defense nature of this treaty and the sense of our bilateral cooperation. Thank you so much. Thank you for your generosity. It's given me so long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Vorontsov, for putting the North Korean foreign policy in a historical perspective, that why it is behaving the way it has behaved over the years. And perhaps the time has come for South Korea also to formally give up its goal of reunification, so that these two countries, which are recognized as separate countries by United Nations, etc., deal with each other as separate nations and try to come to some kind of agreements. Thank you very much. Now I invite my friend Professor Sandip Mishra to speak. In this room, perhaps I and Professor Mishra are only two who have actually been to North Korea. I don't know what, Professor, you been? You have, all right, okay. But I was there when Chairman Kim Il-sung was there, 83, for some non-aligned conference. And Professor Mishra was there more recently. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's pleasure to be here at ICWA. Thank you, Ms. Nutan Marwa and Langel for organizing something on North Korea. And I request that it should be more often on North Korea, because I think we need to discuss more about North Korea, not only South Korea, but North Korea also. Because we have, as Chair mentions, that we are having stereotypes about North Korea, that North Korea is a crazy country. Actually, there are different adjectives. North Korea is a mad country. North Korea is a bad country. North Korea is a failed state. North Korea is rogue state. North Korea is part of excess of evil. So many these things are there. And I'm not saying that these narratives are entirely wrong, but I think they are partial truth, actually. There are other complicated. The truth is much more complicated. And as we Indian who are quite fond of knowing details, I think we should know about complicated aspect of North Korea. So that's important. The story is more complicated. That's one. And second thing I will like to convey that the stereotype image of North Korea, that doesn't help us in making our foreign policy choices. So I think for both the regions, we need to have more discussion about North Korea. Coming to North Korean politics, I think because of paucity of time, I think I will say that it has a very long journey of being actually initially the 1948 Constitution. It talked about Marxist-Leninist state. Then 1972 amendment started saying Marxist-Leninist and Juche idea. Then I think now the Juche idea has also been, you can say, 1992, they left Marxist-Leninist and only Juche. Recently, they have removed Juche also, and now they only say that Kim Il-sung-ism and Kim Jong-ilism. So basically, they have their own, you can say, idea of how to organize politics and economy. It's largely influenced by socialist idea, but at the same time, many Korean elements are also there. And it has also, in a way, all the allegations are to a great extent true, that it has become a personality cult, it has become a totalitarian state, it has become a rule of Kim dynasty. So all these narratives are really true. Here, I think I would like to emphasize in the politics when we are studying North Korea, that North Korea has also, the polity has not been static. There has been a valid model of organizing political life in North Korea, but increasingly they have deteriorated into a personality cult, a totalitarian state. So it's not that like they have been like this for the very beginning. So that part also I would like to emphasize. And yes, in politics, what happens that state coercion is very control on society is very strong, but at the same time, some kind of you can say some kind of legitimacy of regime has also been there in North Korea. Actually, in North Korea, at different places, you can see a very interesting slogan. It says in Korean, it says "Uri bhangsik dero salja," means let's live as per our principles. And actually, people like me who are basically born pre-1990s, we have some, you can say, idea. In 1980s, we Indian also, lots of problems, economic problems were there, but we had some kind of pride that we are living as per our own principles. So that kind of things have been also there. So I think we need to understand that politics, which is basically deteriorating to totalitarian dictatorism, and also having some acceptance plus coercion all. Coming to society, I will like to say that I think we can discuss, but I think society is also governed by, as I mentioned, that it's totalitarian. I'm not using authoritarian. Totalitarian because state has control over almost every aspect of life. In authoritarian, only political life, but even what kind of songs you are listening, what kind of music you are having, what kind of books, novels are published, what kind of dances you are having. All these things are basically determined and quite, you can say, rigorously watched by state. So I think society is also quite, but at the same time, control of society could also be seen in how society divided into basis of loyalty. There's a core group, there's a wavering group, and there's a hostile group. Society is divided. 30% people, core group, 40%, depending on how much loyal you have been historically to regime. So I think state, they have a lots of, you can say, spies and other, you can say, mechanism through which they try to create. But at the same time, last 15, 20 years, 2013, I had chance to visit for 10 days North Korea. And I realized that lots of changes are also happening, like mobile use have been there. I think there are at least out of 23 million people, around 7 million people, they are having mobile phones in Korea, North Korea. Earlier, it was done by some Egyptian company, but then they took over this Egyptian company and they are doing. And also very importantly, what is called Changmadan, private market, private local market. They have been also in last, what happened that usually food and other things are distributed through PDS, public distribution system. But when state is not having enough capacity, what they do, like there was a period of very severe food crisis in North Korea from 1994 to 1998, when I think around 2 to 3 million people, they died. So they open, like if state cannot provide food, they open people to go and do some kind of barter, some kind of trade, and somehow they survive. So I think society has also been, and I think other in discussion we may like to talk more about how South Korean, how outside influences are coming to society in North Korea and how they are changing. Now coming to the last part of my presentation about global role part, I think we need to understand that North Korea is a poor country, definitely, because overall GDP is not more than 50 billion US dollar, but still it's a nuclear power state. If you look at their, you can say, the number of military personnel is 1.3 million people, is fourth in the world. After China, India, America, they are probably Russia, and then North Korea. So they are fourth in the world. They are having, I think, around 7 to 10 million people who are military trained, 10-year military services there. They have all lots of, maybe sometimes obsolete, but I think still they are having lots of arms, ammunition, other things, which they have been supplying to Russia. You can see that. I think, and missile and nuclear technology we can discuss in case required. I think it's a very, very important flashpoint in East Asia. I think any great power politics had to take into account how North Korea moves, and how North Korea moves is also going to determine by how others they move. It's a very, very important flashpoint we need to be aware about. In recent past, I will draw your attention towards one thing, and then I will end. It's about that actually North Korea had played very well from 2017 onwards. 2011, Kim Jong-il died. 2012 early, Kim Jong-un came to power. From 2012 to 2017, there was no summit meeting between North Korea and China, North Korea and Russia. But they had, like Chinese President Xi Jinping, he had 3 summits, 2014, 15, 13, 14, 15, or 14, 15, 16. 3 consecutive years, they have summits. So China, South Korea coming together, North Korea is getting isolated, but they got a very good chance when Moon Jae-in came to power. And North Korea reached out first time in 2018. He visited China. And then I think there had been at least 6 visits, 6 summit meetings between China and North Korean leader. And Xi Jinping also visited North Korea in 2019. So this opportunity they grabbed when Pyeongchang Olympic happened. South Korea offered a peace, I can say, denuclearization talks and other things. The second opportunity came to North Korea with Ukraine war, 2022. I think then what happened that you can see that how North Korea had been able to connect with Russia. And in, I think, September, Kim Jong-un visited 2023. Last year, June, Putin came and they had comprehensive strategic partnership agreement. In that agreement, if you read Article 4 is basically a mutual defense treaty, saying that any attack on each other, we are going to respond together kind of thing. So my point is that, there was a time when North Korea was isolated country, like Hermit Kingdom. Actually, Hermit Kingdom, it comes from a book written in 1882 on Korea, Hermit Nation. So I think, so this isolation of North Korea is very, very, I think it was very difficult for North Korea to deal with that. But over the time, I think different opportunities, they have been grabbed very wisely and very diplomatically by North Korea. And they are creating an alternate space in which they can deal more with China, they can deal more with Russia. Actually, there was one statement in 2024 by President of Belarus saying that actually, why can't we, like Putin and Kim Jong-un and myself, we can have a summit meeting. I think if you look at Iran could be also included. So it's a kind of alternate space is basically available for North Korea, and that they have been trying to grab, because I think disconnection from outside was creating lots of domestic problems. So I'll say that it's a, like North Korea, whenever we talk about that, think about that, usually what happens, there are scarce material about North Korean politics, society, especially domestic part, and which are written by scholars who have been doing it for 20 years, 30 years. They know Korean language. And you will find lots of materials on North Korean domestic politics and society, which is written by people who don't know Korean language. They have no serious training of social science, and they are making claims. North Korea doesn't come to clarify. So I think that's why I think we need to be very careful about what Chair proposed, that any narrative about North Korea must be carefully read, and you don't have to accept everything. We, from India, we can create our own perspective. As I think former Foreign Minister of India, Sushma Swaraj, when Rex Tillerson, he said that, why are you having your embassy in Pyongyang? So he said, look, it's our policy, we, as per our foreign policy choices, we have done. And anyway, even if we consider North Korea not a very cooperative country, but we need to have communication, channel of communication open with that country. So I'll stop myself here, and I would like to have more discussion in the question answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Mishra. And yes, absolutely right. India needs to have its own perspective on all matters, whether international or the internal. And discussions like this really help in clarifying thoughts. Now I invite my friend Professor Choe Wongi, expert on India, frequent visitor to India, and your thoughts will be very valuable. One question I'll pose, now that all the international relations, strategic equations are in a state of flux, Trump too is there. And now in your country also, perhaps, Democratic Party may come back, some version of Moon Jae-in. Then is there a possibility of a Hanoi summit in 20?
Hanoi again.
Hanoi again.
Right.
Please, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tayal. It's good to be back in this Sapro house, and yeah, I have to apologize. I mean, I missed the earlier parts of the discussion. Yeah, I think it's a great initiative by ICWA to organize this kind of roundtable discussion on North Korea. Well, as Mr. Tayal said, I'm not in a position to claim myself to be an expert on North Korea. But if you look at them, every ordinary Koreans think that they know something about North Korea. So they have certain views of North Korea. So I'd like to take this opportunity to raise 3 specific questions rather than providing answers. To my knowledge, there are at least 3 very prevalent and enduring myths about North Korea. 3 theories of North Korea. The first one is theory of imminent collapse. This is enduring question, right? I mean, people have been, since the beginning of the establishment of the North Korea, right? People were talking about collapse of North Korea, imminent collapse, right? Crisis. So yeah, this is theory. This is myth. Theory of imminent collapse. The second one is DPRK relationship with China. The theory of ironclad ties with China. So from observers from outside, right? I mean, if you look at the bilateral relationship between China and North Korea, right? They are really close and they move in lockstep, but that's not true, right? So this is another myth or theory of ironclad ties with China. The third one is a theory of Korean geocentrism. So if you dissolve the contradiction between North and South Korea, then we'll be in a whole new world. So the very source of problem, all kinds of problem related to Korean Peninsula is the contradiction and confrontation between North and South Korea. So I think this is another myth. So let me briefly raise this question, three myths. The first one is theory of imminent collapse. So, I mean, North Korea has been exposed to external sanctions for the entire period of its existence, right? So, my good friend Sandip mentioned about the Great Famine in early 1990s, right? The arduous march. More than 3 billion North Korean people died of hunger. But North Korea survived. So North Korea is totally dependent upon China for its energy and food. And so what are the sources of this resilience, this endurance? This is a quite very important question. And lots of people make their own theory about imminent collapse or the durability, survivability of the North Korean regime. So I don't know the answer, but I think this is a very important question. The second one is a theory of ironclad ties with China. I mean, whenever I talk with expert on North Korea, and especially from China, right? I mean, they always raise issues, some frictions, some contradictions, some problems with North Korea. I mean, they told me that North Korea would not listen to what you say should do, right? So, for example, in 2018-19, when Trump approached Kim Jong-un, and they had first the Singapore summit, right? Then Xi Jinping all of a sudden changed his stance, right? He invited Kim over to Beijing, right? But before that, right, for 7 years, she never wanted to meet with Kim Jong-un. Only after Trump approached Kim Jong-un, then she got a little bit anxious, right? So, and also after the failure of Hanoi summit, right? You don't have any high-level interaction between Xi and Kim, right? So probably if Trump again tried to make a kind of approach to Kim Jong-un, then she might be tempted to meet Kim again. So yeah, so I think you have to think about seriously about the bilateral relationship between North Korea and China. And now Kim Jong-un is kind of established some partnership with Putin, right? So he made another pipeline. So yeah, this is very interesting. So yeah, so I think the theory of ironclad ties between DPRK and China, I think this is we have to look in deep ways about the source of the source of bond, source of common interest, or source of contradiction. The third one is a theory of Korean geocentrism. What I mean by this is that if you look at the South Korean perception about what would be the desirable end game of Korean Peninsula issues, some people think that if the military confrontation, if the regime competition between North Korea and South Korea get resolved, if you have some high level of inter-Korean reconciliation, then South Korea, both South Korea and North Korea would not be in a position to be dependent on China in case of North Korea. In case of South Korea, you would not need this kind of military alliance with America. So what they mean by this is that the inter-Korean rapprochement or reconciliation is the very solution to raise, to enhance the strategic autonomy, lessen the dependence. But I think this is another myth. I mean, especially people in the left side of the political spectrum in Korea, the progressive, and Mr. Lee, he is one of the most strongest candidate for the upcoming presidential election. They think that this inter-Korean relationship is a very solution to all kinds of problems, challenges we face. But this kind of very internally oriented kind of approach, right, is also, I think, just a theory. I mean, inter-Korean contradiction, inter-Korean tension and challenge, and all this is not just Korean problem only. This is a regional problem. This is a global problem. So in that regard, I think we need to have a better understanding of the kind of how the inter-Korean kind of dynamics affect both Koreas, as well as what kind of ramification and it has on regional and global level. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Choe. Very interesting questions, and I'm sure we and our panelists can discuss these questions for 1 hour. But before you came in my introductory remark, Professor Choe, I had said that KJU is an astute strategic practitioner. And the way perhaps when Professor Vorontsov spoke, North Korea is already abandoned the goal of reunification. South Korea could perhaps also go in that direction and try to deal as two countries separate and then resolve their issues. But what you said makes a lot of sense. We have a young audience, and I would like to invite questions from the audience. Please be very brief. Just introduce yourself in 1 sentence and pose the question in 2 sentences. And if possible, name the panelist who would like to answer, otherwise, whom you would like to answer, otherwise I will send it. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 very quick questions. First is addressed to Professor Hwang Jihwan, who has joined online from Seoul. You rightly referred to North Korea's nuclear developments or policies in detail. My question is, the world is aware of India's non-proliferation record and future commitments. So in this background, in your opinion, what should be India's approach towards China, Pakistan, and North Korea nuclear triangle? My second question is addressed to Professor Choe Wongi. You rightly talked about 3 myths, and second about China and North Korea relations. When you referred about in 2018, when Trump approached to Kim Jong, and then Xi Jinping took a different turn. I think Chinese media at that time has suggested that China felt isolated, and that is why that step, I think I see in that respect. How do you see in current position when if Trump approach again the North Korean leadership, what will be the Xi Jinping approach? And the third, if I very quickly, in your opinion, is there any scope for countries like India, which is an Indo-Pacific region, to offer assistance or what is called as act as neutral facilitator, especially in the field of humanitarian assistance, disaster
So,
resilience, or even digital development. Thank you.
Professor Hwang first. Would you like to go first? Professor Hwang, there was a question to you.
Okay.
China, Pakistan.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see. So thanks for your question and the comment. And then there are several questions I need to answer, but try to answer it as quickly as possible. With regard to the first question, whether South Korea also can, drop the unification policy, and I think it is impossible because the Korean people, the eager to reunite, and not only the common, the brotherhood or the national identity, but also it is all the unification is also, the prescribed in the Korean constitution, and then eventually both Koreas, have the supported for the eventual, reunification of the two Korea for several decades, more than 7 decades. So it is somewhat weird that the Kim Jong-un KJU suddenly talks about the end of the unification. It's North Korea's unification policy, and also that the reason why he described the inter-Korean relations as
Kindly be brief, Professor Hwang. Kindly be
yeah,
brief.
two countries that is the state of war. We got a second question about the India's approach to the North Korean nuclear issue. That I would like to emphasize the importance of the non-proliferation and also the North Korean nuclear doctrine, because the North Korea was in the NPT and the non-proliferation regime, and I think they should be in the non-proliferation. So it is so very different from the Indian case, because the India was outside of the NPT, and also second, the nuclear doctrine is really important because North Korea has recently, changed its nuclear doctrine to the more riskier one, say the asymmetric, the escalation that emphasize the importance of the nuclear first. I think in that case that it is really dangerous and risky. So I think that it's correct that for the Indian government to emphasize the importance of the peaceful and that the strategic thinking toward the North Korea and also to the other countries in the case of North Korean nuclear issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Choe, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sandip. I'll take your first question. Yeah, I mean, Trump has been constantly sending out kind of signal, what I call love call to Kim Jong-un, right? So he said that this guy, Kim, is a smart guy. I get along with him very well. I'm gonna reestablish relationship with him. This is very concerning to us because he's indicating a direct deal with Kim bypassing South Korea. If there is going to be another DPRK summit, right? Then South Korea might end up with just a third-party bystander without a player in the process, right? And this largely applies to China as well. So Trump's love call to Kim Jong-un is very concerning my senses to Xi Jinping as well. I think what would be the worst nightmare for Xi regarding Korean issue? I mean, South Korea is a pro-US country, right? Both North Korea and South Korea becomes pro-US country. That would be worst nightmare for China and Xi. So in that regard, I think if Trump makes a move toward North Korea, then it's 100% that China would move, initiate some kind of counter movement.
Thank you. Very interesting, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Dr. Anvesha, a fellow here. My question is for Professor Mishra. What, according to you, are the avenues of meaningful diplomatic engagement with DPRK, especially in the light of denuclearization failures and Pyongyang's continued isolation? And are there innovative frameworks that can offer alternative to the present deadlock? Thank you.
I think a good question. I think one thing I would like to probably correct it. You know, in the first incident, last time 2017, 18, 19, it was not Trump's initiative that talks started, and neither it was Xi Jinping who approached Kim Jong-un. The information in the public domain we have that basically South Korean President Moon Jae-in, because Trump has a policy vis-a-vis North Korea called maximum pressure. And maximum pressure, they were trying to have secondary boycott and other things. Every day, shrilled voices were taken from both the sides. But that time, very crucial role was played by South Korean President Moon Jae-in. He invited North Korean delegation to Pyeongchang Olympic, and then actually everything started. So, and what happened when it was decided that North Korean leader is going to visit South Korea, and North Korean leader is also going to have a meeting with American president, then North Korean leader decided that showing respect to China before meeting South Korean and American leaders, let's go and meet Xi Jinping. And Xi Jinping said, okay. So it's not Xi Jinping initiative, that one. So I'm bringing this role of India because in case E.J. Myung played that constructive role this time and tried to bring back, have more dialogue with North Korea or connects Trump with Kim Jong-un, I think in that case, probably India could play a role to connect these 2-3 important players. And actually, it's not that they have to resolve the problem. The issue is that let's come to the negotiating table. Let's get together each other about our positions, and if we can solve any of them. Similarly, when you say unification, you know, the most people who support good relations with North Korea and South Korea, they never talk about reunification. They say that let's have good relations with North Korea. Reunification happen eventually. So I think talking about the goal like denuclearization, reunification, these are going to be two big goals to start with. Let's start with simple, like get to know each other, talk to each other, have exchanges with each other. And probably India could play a role by having good office to both the countries, South and North Korea. Thank you.
Before I invite another question, I think here room would very much like to know how Russia may react in case there is a move by President Trump to have another Hanoi 2 with Chairman Kim Jong-un. Professor Vorontsov.
Thank you. No, already Russia expressed the response to this question that Russia will support and greet any kind of contact and dialogue aimed at stabilization of security situation on Korean Peninsula. And Russia, of course, will not oppose that. Russia will support that if Mr. Trump and Mr. Kim Jong-un will restore the dialogue. And this question is discussing, but as I know, just for example, yesterday it was a reception in DPRK embassy in Moscow dealing with the birthday of Kim Il-sung anniversary. And we discussed this issue with our North Korean friends, and they prefer to focus attention on the fact that Mr. Trump broke his promises in Hanoi meetings, and they have some feeling of disappointment and some feeling of mistrust. But of course, it's not exclude the possibility of the Trump-Kim Jong-un new stage of rapprochement. So Russia's position is positive. Any dialogue is better than the absence of dialogue. It's natural. Therefore, Russia is positive to such kind of perspective.
Oh, you join me.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Dr. Stuti Banerjee. I'm a senior research fellow at the Council. My question is to Professor Mishra. So you spoke about how what happens within Korea has an effect on its foreign policy and vice versa. Given that context, like Korea has a lot of sanctions on it, UN, US, and all of that. How does that really affect how its domestic politics is shaped? Like, how does the domestic politics of the Korean regime kind of is shaped by the sanctions that have been applied in terms of its economic development, societal changes? Thank you.
I think North Korea has lots of problem because of that. Like food availability, I can tell you, like normally any year, North Korea needs to have 6.5 million tons, 6 to 6.5 million ton food grains every year. And they can produce not more than 3.8 or 4 million. So it means they are dependent on outside world. But because of all these sanctions, they can't do that. So huge problem, people in North Korea, they suffer because of those sanctions. But at the same time, like suppose 2013, when I visited, they have created their own narrative. Like they say that we are very thankful to our leader, and because of our leader, we are having 2 meals a day. And we are not having 3 meals a day because of Americans. So they have created their own types of narratives. And through that, they try to like 1994 to 1998, I said there was something called arduous march. Famine, 2-3 million people died. They say that look, it's a march for nation building, and we need to suffer. And so they create narrative through which, and plus state coercive power. So I feel that it's creating lots of problem, but until now it appears that regime had been able to manage that. But I think it's definitely having a huge impact on Korean people and their human rights.
Thank you. Last question, please.
Thank you to the chair. I'm Anubha. I'm a research associate at the council. My question is for Professor Sandip. And as North Korea faces climate issues such as floods, deforestation, etc., do you think climate change or green aid can be an entry point, an unconventional entry point for it to engage with the world? Thank you.
I think a very good question. I agree with you because, you know, North Korea is a country which is topography-wise very mountainous. So around less than 20% land is useful for agriculture. So it having and lots of, you can say, deforestation have been also happening because of wood cutting. And so I think through green aid or any kind of that kind of, you can say, initiative, if we can reach out North Korea, I think that will be a very good thing. But we need to remember that hard politics is going to be still prominent. So any entry into North Korea will be first, you can say, weighted by regime, politically, security-wise, and then they are going to. But I think this could be a good choice to, you can say, like World Food Program, or say Green Initiative, or say other, you can say, environmental, you can say, we can go via those routes. Thank you.
Now, for me, it's only to say it has been an absolutely fascinating presentation from all panelists, and it will be very useful for ICWA and all the scholars to look at North Korea with fresh eyes, not with any prejudice, and be hopeful about a more peaceful Korean peninsula. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ambassador. As we reach the end of this enlightening discussion, it is my privilege to extend our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who made today's event a success. First and foremost, sincere thanks to our distinguished panelists for sharing their invaluable insights and expertise. Professor Jihwan from the University of Seoul, Professor Alexander Vorontsov from the RAS Institute of Oriental Studies, Professor Sandip Kumar Mishra from JNU, Professor Choe Wongi from the KNDA, Korea National Diplomatic Academy. We are also deeply grateful to Ambassador Skand for chairing today's session and guiding the discussions with such clarity and depth. A special appreciation also goes to Ms. Nutan Kapoor Mahawar for proposing this stimulating discussion on an important topic, such as North Korea's politics, society, and global role. And finally, to our engaged audience, your presence, questions, and enthusiasm have made this discussion all the more enriching. With that, we formally conclude today's discussion, and we invite you all who are present here in person to join us for high tea at the foyer. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.